So how do you decide on a reasonable budget for decorating your room? I have a special guest with me to talk about just that today. I'm Doug Walker, and this is Roominess. So today we're talking about budgeting for decor, and I wanted to bring in somebody who talks about budgeting every day. Dan Hinz runs the Adulting with Money channel on YouTube. Welcome to Roominess, Dan.
Very good. Thanks, Doug. Thank you for having me.
So, real quick, give us an overview. What is Adulting with Money about?
Yeah, so at Adulting with Money, I help couples unite, not fight over their money, whether they want to crush debt faster, buy a house sooner, or they just want to get on the same page. And I'm really happy you reached out to talk about Decor because, we talked about that and I knew nothing. And you were saying, hey, Dan, some of my viewers want to know more about how to be better with money when it comes to decorating. So I'm happy to help. Just fire away.
All right. Well, great. Thank you for being here. One of the things that I was thinking, after somebody's taken care of housing and a car, decor can be one of the biggest budget items that couples face together. Do you find it to be a big conflict for couples that you talk to?
It can be. It really depends on the couple. So my wife, she loves to buy things as cheap as possible. So for the most part, when she decorates our house, I'm not really too worried about the cost. But when she comes to me and says, hey, I want a new living room set, or I want a new bed, or something like that, that's where the conflict starts to happen because those items are a lot bigger. And for some couples, that can be a big thing. If someone is very into creating an inviting home and they want to keep updating stuff, that could be a cost that keeps coming up again and again and again. So it depends on the couple, but what I suggest to everyone is to say, well, if it's something that you enjoy, maybe it's not decor, maybe you're a golfer or a hunter or a video gamer, that you have hobbies, you have things that you enjoy that you're probably going to spend money on. And if that's going to keep coming up, make it a part of your monthly budgeting, make it a part of your regular money conversation and see how you can fit it into your life as well as all the important stuff.
Okay, great. That's a really good way to think about it. So I guess one of the things that I hear in the decor world often is a decorator will ask, so what's your budget? And I think a lot of people are unprepared and just not equipped for that kind of question. Should we be thinking about, is it dollars per square foot? Is it dollars per room? Is it dollars per project? Or should we be thinking more like dollars per year? How do you think about those kind of things?
That's a good question. And I think a lot of people hate the word budget. When they think the word budget, they think constriction, control. I can't do anything fun. There's no, it's too much control for a lot of people. But when I start to talk about budgets, it's your plan. It is your plan to spend your money how you want to reach the goals that you want. And when I think about budgeting, and especially with decor, or maybe you're saving up for a car or saving up for a house, or you want to go on vacation, having those dollars per month is usually how I like to think about money. When I work with couples and they have a goal, I say, that's great. But in order to solve the argument or to stop fighting about it, essentially we need to decide what it is that we want. And a lot of times what we want, we don't know how much that costs. And when we don't know how much it costs, we don't know how to fit it into our budget, how to fit it into our lives. And so when it comes to all things money and all things budgeting, I think the first thing you should do is decide what it is that we want and how much does that cost. And if you can get that cost down to a monthly number, whether you buy everything this month or you take a couple months to buy pieces at a time, whatever you might be doing, that is how you can decide then, okay, can we afford this or can't we? How are we gonna fit this monthly number into our monthly budget?
So I guess as you're budgeting or talking budgets with your clients, how far into the future do you tend to go? Because I guess I'm thinking a decor project, you might be able to get it, hit it hard and do it in a couple of months. But oftentimes, decor projects can run into 2 to 5 years maybe that you're buying the different things that are going into the room. Do you actually budget out that far?
That is a good question. 2 to 5 years, that's a long time. I mean, as we can see with our current pandemic, you never really know what's going to happen in any particular year. And so it comes down to, how fast you want this done and how much wiggle room do you have? Because when I'm working with couples, it's not just about decorating the house. It's about other things, like they're trying to save for retirement. They're trying to get out of debt. They want to save up for the down payment of a house, or they want to get a new car or go on vacation. And so there's a lot of priorities that are fighting with each other to see what they want. And a lot of times when I sit down with couples and we talk about, okay, what's number one? What's number two? What's number three? Let's get on the same page about what it is that we want for our entire life. And if you still want to do this project, how can we fit that in? How much is that going to cost? And so oftentimes you have to guess. And when it comes to talking with couples and money, I'm not trying to teach it as like steps that you have to follow and that you're going to follow forever. It's more about habits. Is that every month you kind of hit the reset button. You look at, okay, what happened last month? What are our goals for this month? What happened with our money last month? How do we want to spend it this month? And to look forward. And so you want to try to plan ahead as best you can, but when it comes to plans, they don't always go exactly according to plan. So you have to be flexible to say, okay, well, maybe our decor budget this month is $200, but maybe next month, if we both get an extra paycheck at the end of the month, maybe all of that money can go to decor or whatever projects that you have. And so you want to be as flexible as possible, but you can maximize the dollars that is going into that particular project by looking at the rest of your life. What are you saying no to say yes to this project? And sometimes, unfortunately, you can only afford what you can afford without digging yourself deeper into a hole. So do I suggest planning out 2-5 years in advance? No. Like at the very least, maybe a month, at the most, like 3 months. And then you're going to have to reevaluate and see, okay, what's happened? What do we want? What's next? And what can we afford? And it's an ongoing process, but they're habits. And just like brushing your teeth or riding a bike, once you get used to it, it's not so bad.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so planning really just on that month-to-month basis. And I like that. So if somebody has then like a bigger project in mind, say, a bathroom renovation, and that for my channel, that is a big project to be talking about. So what I'm hearing you say is you would probably budget that out month to month and start piling that money up so that you can do the whole project at one time later on. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and what you can do is what's known as a sinking fund. So like for my wife and I, we have a sinking fund in our budget for home improvement, just general, when things break, home improvement. And so every month, $50 goes into this home improvement fund. Now, whether we use it every month or not depends on what's going on. We do the same thing with auto repair. So when we need a new tire, we've got a couple $100, hopefully just sitting there ready to buy that new tire. So if home decor, if this is an ongoing thing where you're really trying to renovate your house or rooms over time, you can say, okay, we're just going to start socking money away into this account. And when there's cash, we'll go buy the stuff that we need, make the repairs, and then build up more cash over time. That's one way of doing it. But then the other way is to go out and say, okay, we have this project, to hire a contractor or to look into the repairs yourself and say, okay, this project is probably going to cost, $4,000. And if we want it done in 6 months, well, 4,000 divided by 6 is, some number, some monthly number that you're going to have to start socking away as you go. So the farther in advance you can plan, then the easier it is to build up that cash and do it. But if you want to get started right now, chances are you're going to have to put it on a credit card or get a home equity loan or go into debt in some version to do it. Now, you're adults, so if you want to do that, that's up to you. But certainly I would suggest, well, if you're going to be in the house for a couple of years, why not save up the cash and not put yourself into that risky position?
I think that makes a lot of sense. So with the budgeting that you do, it sounds like kind of a monthly budget that goes into potential home repairs or home improvement. Would that take care of, I assume, kind of things like painting or simple repairs to rooms or upgrades to rooms? I think The reason I bring this up, a lot of decorators talk about paint as being almost a free solution, but really, once you get all the materials together and go through the process, you can spend a couple hundred, if not up to $1,000, just repainting and doing some simple revisions to a room. Is that kind of taken care of in your general month-to-month planning of budget?
That is a good question. So yes and no. I mean, so when it comes to that home improvement fund, well, let me back up and say that budgeting, it's your money. Like if it's cash saved in an account and you've earmarked it for home improvement, does not mean you have to use it for home improvement or auto repair. You don't have to do that. So it could come where there's a month where you're like, we really need to paint this room, or we're looking to move, or your baby's coming and we really want to start to decorate this room. And if you've got money in the auto repair fund and you're okay using that cash, there's nothing wrong with taking that and then using it. We're all adults. That's the choice that you can make. So that home improvement fund, because of my wife and I defining that as home improvement, we probably look at that cash and be like, yeah, let's use that for paint. I mean, it's home improvement. Why not? But in the end, you don't have to be staunch. You don't have to be so particular about like, well, we put this money aside for vacation, thus we can't use it for anything else but vacation. It's money. Like if you want to spend it on something else, your goals have changed, your priorities have changed, it's absolutely fine to do that. But if you're a couple, make sure you agree on that together. Don't just do it and then tell your husband or your wife later, be like, hey, I did this thing. And they might have been looking at their watch, be like, I'm ready to go on vacation. And so that's, you don't want to, you want to agree first. Get on the same page and have those conversations to avoid those fights.
Yeah, okay, that sounds like a great idea again. So what I hear you saying is kind of be flexible about the money that you're saving and how you're budgeting it depending on the priorities that come up on any given month.
Yeah. And so you've probably heard of the Pareto principle where it's like, what's the 20% work that I do that gets 80% of the results? And when it comes to money, that 20%, that little bit that you need to do to get the most bang for your buck, is communication, is to just sit down and talk about it. Because there is some work that goes into making sure your bank accounts are connected to like a budgeting app or maybe using a spreadsheet. I don't like spreadsheets because it takes a lot of time. But if you have an app or something like that, there's some buttons that you're going to need to click. But the logistics, the buttons, the apps and stuff, it might take more time, but it's not as much reward. The reward comes in the conversations. And so, yeah, so when you're talking about, and what I'm talking about as well, is that flexibility, is that making that decision together is going to solve a lot of problems ahead of time. It's going to avoid those fights. And so having that 5-minute conversation to avoid a 5-day fight down the road, that's a big payoff.
So you talked a little bit about habits there. What are some other good habits that couples can start for budgeting?
Yeah, when I work with couples, I talk about that there are 3 major habits that they need to master. And if they master these habits, then they'll master money together. And we've kind of danced around them this whole conversation. But the 3 major habits are, number 1 is to set goals, is to get into that habit of every month, look at your goals, what has happened, does anything need to change? Hopefully, life is going the same as the prior month, and that step goes really fast. But then you have to have the second habit of tracking your money. Where's everything coming from? Where's everything going? And it's not to be, an amateur accountant. You don't have to track every tiny penny and put it into 100 different spots. You could have a budget that's 10 items long. And if that's enough information for you to make a decision, that's fine. You simplify as much as you can, but you need to have information to make decisions. Like, what happened to our money? Where did it come from? Where did it go? So that we can make a decision going forward. And that's where that third habit comes in, is to make decisions, is to take that knowledge of, okay, we know what we want. And, habit number 2 is we know what's going on. Habit number 3 is to say, well, what do we want to do next? And like I say, these are habits. It's a loop. It happens every month, every quarter, every 6 months, every year. And so that if you're continuously keeping up with your money, if you're continuously looking at your goals, just checking in on stuff, then when something happens, when something changes, you have the ability, you have the power, you have the knowledge to make decisions, to sit down together and have a 5-minute conversation rather than a 5-hour conversation, because you've been continuously keeping up on stuff. I like to think of it kind of like brushing your teeth. It's better to do it every day than wait an entire year and do it the night before you go to the dentist. Otherwise, you're going to spend 3 hours brushing your teeth to try to not be at the dentist for another 3 hours. So keeping up with your money on a very small, regular basis pays a lot of dividends over time.
And now, here's the fun part. Dan is going to ask me decor questions from a budget perspective. And we talk about that over on Adulting with Money. You can find that video over here. Thanks for being on Roominess, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Doug.
And thank you for watching.